Boleh.
Nombor 10 tu tak faham lah soalan dia.
Cak nombor 10. Mana nombor 10? Macam mana Ros rasa pasal the effectiveness of Ros punya language dalam discuss pasal pedophilia. Ros rasa efektif ke tak? And then Ros rasa language Ros ni influence dengan public ke tak? Gitu. Faham tak? Okay.
Faham kot.
Macam tu. Faham kan? Okay kan? Okay. Sekejap. Okay, nak start. Nak record. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hello everyone. So I am Wan Muhammad Sharifuddin bin Abdullah, 065942. Currently doing my FYP on unraveling the portrayal of pedophilia among Band 7 students through discourse analysis, which I study on the Speech Act when discussing pedophilia. So without further ado, if everyone is ready, so let's start with the first question. In your point of view, what is pedophilia and what is your opinion about it? Who want to start first, or should I pick a name? Maybe Faris, can you start first? Or who?
Can I try first, Dave?
Okay, you can try first.
All right. So should I tell my name?
No need.
No need.
Okay.
Okay. So for the first question that you mentioned, so for me, I feel like pedophilia is actually a psychiatric disorder of which adults are sexually attracted to children. So I feel my opinion on this matter is that it is a serious issue and it requires societal awareness, legal action, and also psychological intervention in order to protect these children from the pedophiles out there.
Okay. Thank you, Dina. Maybe we can continue with Faris.
Okay. So, in simple terms, pedophilia is having a sexual desire to any person, doesn't matter the gender, above 18, I believe. And what I think about pedophilia is that although at first I am 100% against, and I am still 100% against pedophilia, but then there is one time that I look it up, and this kind of behavior is actually linked to a certain type of disease. So then I try to understand it more and more, and then I am quite sympathetic also to the any person that have this kind of disorder.
Okay. Thank you, Faris. Anyone who want to continue?
I can.
Okay.
Okay. So, in my point of view, pedophilia is when an adult, any adult, whether it's men or women, they have a sexual attraction towards kids that are underage. So, kids they are age, kids they are before their puberty. Yeah. So what is my opinion about pedophilia? I think it is a disturbing issue. It is very concerning, and it is something that is not acceptable to the society, and we should overcome it.
Okay. Thank you, Rose. Maybe Azim, can you continue?
Yes, so in my point of view, pedophilia is some sort of sexual disorder because it is a typical sexual interest because an adult attract to children, and I think, in my opinion, it is a crime when someone that attracted to kids and they start to do like sexual things to kids, like child grooming or something. So I think that's something definitely that's very wrong to do. So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Azim. Okay, so one, maybe you can continue.
From my understanding, I think pedophilia is a psychiatric disorder in which adult or older adolescent experience a primary or exclusive sexual attraction to underage or what we call minor children. And I think it's very concerning because in Malaysia, I think we don't have that much exposure about how dangerous can pedophilia be.
Okay, thank you everyone for the first question. Okay, so for the next question, how do you guys usually express your opinion when discussing about when discussing sensitive topics, especially pedophilia? Like, do you guys usually express your opinions by sharing your own beliefs, or sharing opinions, or maybe prompting a question, or maybe making suggestion? You can also provide example. Yeah. So who want to start first? Maybe Rose.
Me. Okay. Okay, so from my personal experience, I have talked about this issue with some of my friends. So, what would we do is when we talk about pedophilia, of course, the first thing we would share judgment. We would judge the because we critiques what this creepy behavior, right? And then I think the next, besides critique the actions, um, besides critiquing the actions, we would also um, curious, and we would like to know more about how it happened. How can someone be a pedophile, right? And then, so for example, one of the I think one of the questions that would come up um, throughout our discussion, maybe like how can someone be pedophilia, right? How can someone turns out to be like that? Yeah, so I think that is my answer.
Okay. So for Rose, you usually share your own judgment and also prompt a question, right?
Yes, correct.
So what about Azim? What do you think?
For me, I would probably judgment and opinion. So I think it is important to have a clear judgment about these issues because this is something that is wrong to do. And also, when I discuss pedophilia issue, I will also making suggestion on what to do to the perpetrators, like uh, give him a punishment or anything like that.
Okay, understood. Okay, so next maybe we can start with one.
Um, I think I agree with Rose because usually I express my opinions by firstly sharing observation or any issue that regarding to pedophilia, and then I will ask my friends how they see the issue, and then maybe after that, towards that, we will share our judgments, our opinions, and from that also we can prompt questions like maybe out of our curiosity of how a pedophilia can act like that and whatnot. So, and lastly, we will make suggestions like, what does people around us take actions or whatsoever.
Okay, thank you, one. What about you, Dina?
So, for me personally, in order to express my opinions on this sensitive topic, I would agree with one by sharing observations first, because I feel like if you want to talk about a topic, you should really know what the topic is really about. And then afterwards, I would ask questions on, other than factors, why is it bad to be a pedophile? What are the side effects that can have on the children? And just because of that, we can ensure the discussion remains respectful and also constructive, so that all opinions matter and also are listened, so that we can really conclude to a final discussion on why this topic should really be vital and discussed, especially in Malaysia context.
Okay, thank you, Dina. So, Faris, what about you? How do you express your opinion?
Okay, so for me, when I'm discussing about this issue with my friends, I believe it is a very sensitive issue, especially in Malaysia, because I don't know about you guys, but from my personal opinion, a lot of people actually quite, how do you call it, not aware about this issue, that pedophilia, and there are still a lot of people that did not know how a pedophile acts, and most of the time they will presume something that a pedophile act to be a normal behavior, and that is a very dangerous things, not just to the victim but to our society, because we are living in a society. We need to be very careful with pedophiles, because we need to take action, uh, and by taking action we need to teach the people about pedophile, especially the elderly, because they are the one that are the hardest to persuade in understanding about pedophile.
Okay, thank you. So, you by that statement, you imply that you usually suggesting within among your friend that you want like action is needed for this issue, right?
Yes, but I also focus on the elderly. Uh, Luckily, most of the people, elder people that I know, are aware of this issue.
Okay, thank you, Faris. Okay, so moving on to the third question. What kind of language or expressions do you find most effective in this kind of discussion? Do you think maybe like factual language, empathetic language, questioning language, or suggestive language? So, what from this four, do you know what kind of language do you think like most effective? Maybe we can start with Azim.
Okay, so for me, I think that the language or expression that I find most effective to discuss pedophile would be factual or clear and direct language, because uh, in discussing this issue, we must provide like proof, and we must use the right term so that we can avoid any ambiguity or complex phrasing, to ensure that our message is very clear and people understand that what we are trying to say. So, for example, during the Abang Bus issue, people on TikTok would use terminology like PDF. So I think that's very confusing. So instead of using PDF, we can just directly say pedophilia. So that's how
Okay, maybe you can repeat your answer, like the last answer, because you are lagging just now.
okay, clear.
Okay. Clear. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so for example, during the Abang Bus issues, people on TikTok, Twitter, like discuss the issues, and they use the term PDF in discussing the issues. So I think instead of using PDF, we can use direct a clear terminology, which is pedophilia, so that we can avoid confusion.
Okay, thank you. Azim, maybe we can continue with one.
I agree with Azim. We need to use factual language because, especially in discussing issues that are sensitive, because, um, like what Faris said earlier, it's hard to talk or discuss about this issue to the elderly especially. So I think by using factual language that we can address more what are the effect of normalizing pedophilia, and like what Azim just said now, pertaining to the Abang Bas issue, most of us clearly can see that people are not aware what does pedophilia means and understand. So I think it's very important to use factual, I mean, be more directive instead of using flowery language.
Okay, thank you, one. Maybe we can continue with Faris, I guess.
I also agree with the Wan and Ajim, as I think the most effective way to communicate regarding this issue is by using factual evidence to persuade the people much easier, because by giving them facts about the pedophile, and such as, for instance, talking about the rising cases of pedophile in
Uh,
so yeah, I think using
can you
factual
repeat because you are
statement is very, very
lagging
important.
also. You are lagging also.
Uh, okay. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I agree with Juan and Azim, as we need to use factual evidence and statement to persuade people much easier regarding this issue, and make them more aware of how concerning and dangerous pedophiles are. And by doing so, we will then be able to discuss this issue much further in talking about the solution to this matter.
Okay, thank you, Faris. Maybe Dina can continue.
So, hi, to answer the question, I agree, and we should use not only factual language but also professional language so that it fosters understanding and also to avoid provocation in terms of discussing that issue. So, for example, using general terms like child sexual abuse or offender, victim, and also at risk children, so that these people, specifically if we're focusing on adult groups to discuss on this matter, would have a very clear vision on the terms that are used and also what are the common words that can be found when discussing on this issue so that they are clear and also they have clear, no, not only clear, but they have the idea, the correct idea of why is it bad being a pedophile.
Okay, thank you, Dina. What about you, Rose? Aku cakap dah lah ni pula macam si. Sorry for the technical issue. Okay, Rose, maybe you can continue again.
Okay, to answer your question, I think I agree with most of you guys saying that we should use factual or directive language when we're discussing about a pedophile issue, right? Okay, so the reason is when we're using directive language, I think it is more direct. It's easy for people to perceive and understand rather than just like Azim just give example just now. He said that people usually commented people usually replace the word pedophile as PDF, and then I think would it would um it would create confusion to people because some people might understand it and then some might don't, and then some we should also avoid we should also avoid using euphemisms, right? Like maybe people will call them creep, like just call them pedo, you know. So yeah, I think direct and factual language is the suitable one to use in discussing about this issue.
Okay, thank you, Rose and everyone. So moving on to the next question. Are there any specific words or phrases or language that you want to avoid when discussing pedophilia, and why? Maybe who want to start first? Maybe one. Do you want to start first?
Um, certain words that I avoid when discussing about pedophilia is maybe because I think pedophilia or any harassment is can be very traumatic to some people, and I guess the word or phrases that every time I discuss about this issue, maybe by not saying like it's not that deep, or like it's not that, yeah, maybe I would avoid saying it's not that deep when discussing about pedophilia, because you don't know how much that it could affect someone or a person, even though they're not the one who is maybe they have some people or maybe a family that are affected or experience pedophilia. So I guess the reason why I try not to say it's not that deep or it's not that personal is because I wanted to protect their feelings. Yeah.
Okay, so with your statement, you mean like don't make any suggestion that can imply like hopelessness, something like that, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
because it's a serious issue.
okay. Thank you, one. Maybe Dina, you can continue.
Okay, so hi. Personally, for me, some of the words that I would avoid is probably stigmatizing terms such as like monster or pervert, because I feel like with these terms they can sensationalize the issue, and also to hinder constructive discussion, and it will create like a basic agreement among these seekers on this issue is actually correct or not. So that's one. And another thing is that I would try to neglect using victim blaming phrases, such as this child seduced the adult. So because of this, like Wan mentioned, in a way we are subtly saying that you started this first. That's why pedophiles are going against you, and these are the terms that I feel we should avoid. So because this will only incorrectly shifts the responsibility to the victim rather than us trying to actually help the victim overcome the traumatic experience from this issue.
Okay. Thank you, Dina. Maybe Rose, you can continue.
Okay, so words some words or phrases that I would avoid when discussing about this issue. I think it will be like maybe trying to calm the victim, saying, "Oh, it's okay. It's just a small matter." I mean, maybe there's a reason why the perpetrator did this. I mean, because I think that will downplay the severity of what the victim experienced. So yeah, and then another thing is maybe try to um understand the perpetrator, or accepting the behavior. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Okay, thank you, Rose. So, Faris, what about you? What words or phrases that you will avoid?
Okay, the phrases that I will avoid is the one that Dina has mentioned before, which is victim blaming. Because if you look up at the social media about any issues about pedophile or sexual abuse, if you look at the comment, the majority of them actually are blaming the victim of the way that they wear their dresses, of how they behave, instead of blaming the pedophile. So yeah, victim blaming is the phrases or word that I will avoid.
Okay, thank you, Faris. What about you, Ajim? Azim?
Hello,
Yeah, yeah.
clear tak?
Clear.
Okay, so for me, there are no specific word or phrases that I will avoid when discussing pedophilia. But I do agree with Dina and Faris. I would avoid phrases or words because um, I don't want to shift the responsibility from the perpetrator to the victim because it can cause further trauma to the victim. Because uh, in fact, kid did not have the maturity and the ability to know what is wrong or right when it comes to pedophile. So I think I would avoid victim blaming phrases or words.
Okay, thank you, Azim. So, next question is how do you guys perceive the perpetrators of pedophilia? Are they usually portrayed as a villain of society, or maybe victims of circumstances, or maybe they are portrayed as flawed community? So, what do you guys think? Anyone, would you like to go first? Oh,
Can I go first?
okay.
Okay, so to answer your question, I think one thing about pedophilia, a pedophile, is they are unrecognizable. Among the society, they are unrecognizable. We cannot see them physically, and then like, okay, for example, like if a psychopath, a sociopath, we can see maybe like the way they talk, like their characteristics, a bit of it we can see that, or maybe they are like this, maybe they are like that. But one thing I perceive about perpetrators of pedophilia is nothing. We cannot see because the things they do is in private. They feel it in private. They do things in private, and then yeah, I think so. Um, Maybe they are the villain of the society because they ruin the kids. They traumatize people, but um, they are unrecognizable. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Maybe Faris, can you continue?
I perceive pedophiles as a human being that needs help from the society itself. When I say they need help, I mean in terms of uh, helping them to be able to distinguish the good thing and the bad thing. For example, we have to teach them that they are still human but with disorders, so that we have to take actions in helping them to not acting on instinct, and which will lead to them doing anything that is going to affect them or affect worse affect other people, the children.
Okay, so you imply that the pedophile is like the victims of circumstances, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Tina, you want to go first? You want to continue?
So sorry. Oh yes. Okay. So personally, for me, I would perceive the perpetrators of pedophilia as societal villains because these people they move in silence. It could be someone that you are close with. It could be someone from a strange community that you have never met. So the closest case that I can give an example is from Dr. Amirul Arif Yunus. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he is the brother of a very famous doctor called Dr. Haflina, who is also the wife for Dr. Sheikh Muzaffar. So Dr. Amirul himself has been bombarded by news because recently he has been labeled as pedophile, and it has proven with several issues that people raise, as well as he himself is actually practicing a child psychiatrist in Dublin. So, like I said before, it could be from someone that you are close with among family members. So, with that said, I firmly stand with me seeing that the perpetrators of pedophilia as societal villains because these people would do unspeakable, unimaginable things to children specifically.
Okay, thank you, Dina. Very helpful and firm answer. So maybe Azim, can you continue?
Sure. So the way that I perceive the perpetrators of pedophilia is definitely they are the villains of society because I think they are monsters and sick peoples that are often driven by unusual sexual desire towards children, and they would do something that harm children and in silence. So I think they are definitely villains of society.
Okay, okay, thank you, Azim. Oh, okay, okay, thank you, Azim. So, what do you think? How do you perceive the perpetrators of pedophile?
I think how do we perceive preparators is depending on the culture, the societal, but if in my opinion, I would portray the perpetrators as villain of society because we know that pedophilia is widely regarded as one of the most um, disgusting crimes because it's involved not only minor but exploitation or the harm for vulnerable children. So that shows that it sparks a lot of strong emotional and moral reaction. So a lot of us will perceive the perpetrators as demonized or such a cruel act. And I think because news outlets and entertainment media also like often sensationalize the cases of pedophilia, so a lot of words like monsters, like predators, are strongly used to reinforce the societal fears and call them as a villain. So I think that's from me.
Okay, thank you, Wan. Okay, so just now we are discussing about the portrayal of perpetrators. So what about the victims? How do you think victims of pedophilia are represented in discussion or society? Are they usually represented as someone who is also partially involved in the incident? Or maybe they are usually represented as someone who deserve empathy and support, or they usually represented as unemphasized figure. So what do you think? Maybe Aziz, can you start? Okay, okay, Dina. Okay, okay, we can start with
Okay.
Dina because she. Okay.
No, it's okay. Azim, you can go first.
Okay. So I think victims of pedophilia are represented in discussion as individuals who deserve empathy and support, because victims are usually represented as vulnerable individuals that has been harmed by the perpetrators. So it is not their fault, and they need uh, our support for justice and to heal the trauma that they experience. So I think this portrayal also align with the growing awareness about their mental health, trauma, and healing process from the treatment that they get from pedophilia.
Okay, thank you, Aziz. Okay, so Dina, you can continue.
So for me personally, I would say the victims are often portrayed as, like Azim mentioned, someone who deserves empathy and also support. But these days, I feel like the media wants to capture attention a lot from us. So one of the ways they would portray these people as if they are the ones who initiated the issue to become more and more well known. So, for example, for what I'm saying is, media could publish something like, what was she wearing? She never said no. So these kind of controversial topics, saying that the victims are the sole reasons of why pedophile cases are increasing from time to time. And I feel that goes against our odds of actually trying to decrease the issues. And because of the medias, the setting that they have set on the standards of actually publishing any kinds of news regarding this case, which makes the pedophile victims maybe more scared to actually come out and share their experiences. And because of this, it is quite hard for us, specifically in Malaysia, as mentioned before, to actually gather and capture around these perverted and also child sexual abuses.
So, like for right now, like the victims are usually portrayed as victim blaming, right? They put all the blame on the victims. Okay. Maybe
Yeah.
one, you can continue.
From my perspective, I always see cases like involving pedophilia. I think there are always portrayed as like unemphasized figures because in some issues about pedophilia, particularly when the focus is on the perpetrator's action or punishment, I can see that sometimes the victims may be overshadowed or not being taken like much attention to because they're acknowledged as being harmed, but their personal experiences, voices, or their needs are often like overshadowed by the outreach against the offender. So I think this reduces the victims to voice out their fear, their traumatized experience. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Wan. Maybe Faris, you can continue.
So I believe the victims are either painted as the unemphasized figure, or as Dina mentioned, as also the one who initiated the activity with the pedophiles. So, from my personal opinion, the majority of the people that were victim blaming the victim, mostly of them come from the elderlies, especially in a certain area and with a certain characteristic. Let's say from the East Coast, they have a different perspective towards the issue, and the people on the other states will have different perspective. Well, as I said, the people on the East Coast see this issue much more as a, how do you call it, a show of love instead of act of a pedophile, as they seems to acknowledge the pedophile's action towards the victim as something normal and something that is an act of love and not as something that is dangerous. Yeah.
Okay, so you are implying that by normalizing the action of perpetrators, it eventually put the blame on the victims, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, Rose, you can continue.
Okay, so to answer this question, I think most of the time people would perceive the victim as innocent. But uh, the victim are not the one who partially involved in the incident. But from what I see, is the victims are not involved, but their parents. Because when you scroll like social media, the one who contribute to this incident is mostly is their parents, because their parents usually post pictures about their children not wearing shirt, wearing maybe only diapers, like just they just post, and then um and then the people in the comments would be like, hey, don't post your apa hey, don't post your children with no shirt, and etc. So I think that people would believe that the victims are innocent, but the one who is partially involved is the parents. Yeah, and I think that the victims deserve more justice. They deserve more empathy, and their parents also, uh, they also deserve justice from their parents, basically. So yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Rose. Okay, so for the next question is when discussing victims and perpetrators of pedophilia, what emotions or expressions do you think are often highlighted? Anyone who would like to go first? Anyone? One,
Can I
maybe?
go
Okay,
first?
okay, Azim, okay.
Okay, so the emotion that I think are often highlighted when discussing about pedophiles. So for the victims, I think the emotions would be empathy, because people will naturally feel the need to care for the individuals, especially in pedophile, because they are innocent children that have been harmed. So I think these emotions is very important in order for us public to give support toward the children. As for the perpetrators, I think the emotion that often highlighted is anger.
Sambung weh. Well, maybe you can continue.
Kami. Okay, so the emotion that highlighted
Lagging.
perpetrators would be
Lagging.
anger
Okay, boleh dengar.
because public would feel a deep sense of the emotion often highlighted for perpetrators would be anger because public would demand for justice and suitable punishment for perpetrators. So that's all from me.
Okay, thank you. Maybe when you can go.
Personally, for me, one emotion that I think would be major that I feel when I look about this issue is disgust because I will also have like you know thoughts like how could a person do that, especially in pedophilia. So I think my emotion is disgust.
Okay, thank you, Wan. Rose, maybe you can continue.
Okay, so emotions that are often highlighted when discussing about pedophilia is, I think, just like one say, is disgust, frustrated, anger, because yeah, because they are children, right? They are innocent children. They are very young and they don't know anything. So how could someone who is mature, who is grown enough, can do such thing to them? And also, in another perspective, besides anger, besides frustration, besides disgust, I think another emotion that appear is, for me, when seeing all this news about pedophilia, I think I also feel sad, and I feel as if, I feel failure, as a we are all a failure as a society, because we cannot combat this issue. Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you, Rose. What about you, Faris?
The emotion that is the most highlighted when discussing about this issue. Um, I think is discuss not just to the perpetrators, but also to our society in Malaysia, because the reason that the cases of pedophiles are either at the same level or rising in Malaysia is because we as a people are allowing them to commit their acts, and you can see the evidence themselves in the social media when discussing about this issue, that there are the majority actually are actually defending the pedophiles. So that's why I think the emotion that I think the most highlighted one is discussed to both the pedophiles and the society.
Okay, thank you, Faris. What about you, Dina?
So for me, I feel like some of the emotions that are often highlighted in discussing this issue from the items that I've read is the urgency, sense of urgency to actually address the issue effectively. So all of the emotions mentioned, such as disgust, sad, anger, are some of the common emotions. But also at the end of the paper or even published articles, they would have some sort of hopes on what we can do and why we should do it immediately in order to put a stop to these pedophile issues.
Okay, thank you, Dina. Next question is, do you think the way people discuss pedophilia, anything like expressive or maybe like assertive, suggestive, um, do you think that kind of way uh, influence public understanding or attitudes toward the issue? And if you say so, how? Maybe Faris, you can start first. Uh-uh.
Um, so I think the way that people discuss about this issue in public uh, do little to no influence to how the society sees pedophiles, because I believe that uh, people don't change, especially in terms of their behavior. And so trying to influencing people, especially the adolescents, is going to be a very difficult task, because they have their belief set a long time ago. So trying to influence them is going to be very difficult, because how do you say it?
Because they
It's
have their own
rather
stand.
hard, because
They have their own stand, right?
the only because yes, and the only way that I think that is going to influence them is by those kind of things to happen to themselves, for
Oh,
them to know how the feeling is to be a victim of pedophile.
okay. So, from your perspective, is due to this kind of things, it does not influence, like the way people discuss about pedophilia, not influence public understanding, right?
Yeah, little to no influence.
Okay. Maybe Dina, you can continue.
So, to answer this question, I feel like the way people discuss pedophilia does have an influence on public understanding and also attitudes towards the issue. For instance, when discussions about these kind of issues, it shapes the public perceptions toward it. So, what we should do is by either fostering our understanding based on facts as well as perpetuating stigma so that we emphasize the need for balanced dialogue. So as like Faris mentioned, some people they have their own stand and we should take that into consideration as well as the facts that we have to actually support our facts. So in this matter, when we hear both sides, eventually we will come to an agreement on the discussions about pedophilia, specifically if we're counting on public's attitudes.
Okay. Thank you, Dina. Um, what about you, Rose?
Okay, so I agree with Dina saying that the way people discuss about pedophilia does influence the public understanding about the issue. So why is this so? Because I think when people, especially when you are using directive language, right? Um, especially when people are using directive language, and then they just point out about one's action. So for example, like Azim's example previously about the Abang Bas issue. So when he does post the video and expose the kids, and then people will just directly said, oh, this guy is a pedophilia, this guy is a pedophile, and then people will be like, from that directive language, people will be curious. Some people who doesn't know about the issue, they will be like, okay, what is pedophilia? And then another person would respond by explaining what is it. So and then it I believe this will spread the knowledge and then raise the awareness about the issue and how bad is it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Rose. What about you, Wan? What do you think?
I think how people discuss pedophilia does influence public understanding towards the issue because I give you an example like the Jeffrey Epstein case because it's a very high profile case, and how does it impact because the media especially portray Epstein as a monster, and public saw that, and outrage led to for greater accountability for elites especially. And I think for example like how is Germany, I read in X, I think they have a prevention campaign that offers free and anonymous therapy for individuals with pedophilic tendencies to prevent them from committing offenses. So I think there's that give an impact, like change the public of, maybe it will somehow change the public reframe pedophilia as a mental health issue, but it can also prove that it can be managed or more focusing on preventing the abuse before it happens more worse.
Okay, thank you, Wan. Azim, you can continue.
Okay, so for me, the way people discuss pedophilia did the issues. Okay, so for clear example, during the Abang Bus issues, Facebook users, they are the way they discuss the issues as if Abang Bas did not do something wrong. He just a loving uncle. So the Facebook users, they they their opinions toward the issues is it's not a big deal. It's just that he is a loving uncle. So in TikTok's other hand, people discuss it as if he is doing something wrong and he needs to be punished. So the opinion on TikTok is that Abang Bas is a pedophilia and he need punishment. So I think that is how the way people discuss pedophilia issues did impact public understanding and attitudes toward the issues.
Okay, thank you, Ajim. So next question is, in your opinion, what is the impact of using different speech act like representative, commissive, directive, and commissive when discussing pedophilia? So yeah, maybe one you can start first. One.
I think impact using different speech act when we discuss pedophilia, especially using declarative speech act, is like statements I think like macam pedophiles are criminals or pedophilia is a mental illness. So I think the impact, if it's a negative impact, these declarations can reinforce stigma against individuals who experience pedophilic tendency. If it's in a positive impact, I think this declarative act help to clarify moral and legal positions and also reinforce societal norms against child exploitation. And if we use directive speech act, like for calling for action or policy changes, like for example, like we need more stricter laws or to punish offenders. So I think if it's a positive impact, it can lead to more inspired action or more stronger protection policies towards child or minor that are experience pedophilia. And if it's a negative impact, I think it can act like a fear-based policy, that we maybe can try, maybe it will affect us to ignore the complexity of pedophilia. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Wan. Anyone want to continue? Ask them.
Can I?
Okay.
Okay, so for me, the use of different speech acts, as you mentioned before, such as sharing observation, judgment, belief, or even asking questions, um, can so the impact of using the different speech act would be the direction and the outcome of the discussion about the issues. So each speech act has it can help to shape public's opinion and perception about the issue. So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Ajim. Maybe Rose, you can continue.
Okay, so I think the impact of using different speech act when discussing pedophilia is okay, because different speech act serves different functions, right? So let's say if we're using declarative speech act, which is to to educate or to provide information about the issue. So for example, maybe when using declarative speech act, maybe we just educate people, tell people that hey, it is not appropriate, it is not okay to post pictures of your children without their clothes, maybe. So that so that will raise the awareness, that will educate um the people about this issue. So, for example, let's compare to another speech act. So, let's say commissive, right? So, by saying that actions will be taken, so or maybe the perpetrators of pedophilia, we will maybe remove their private parts, maybe. So that in that way, um, by using commissive speech act, it would build trust and hope for the victims, for the society, um, in creating a more safer environment or safer society. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Thank you, Rose. Maybe Dina, you want to continue?
Okay. So I will be focusing on commissive speech acts and the impacts of it when we are using it in discussing pedophilia. So for me personally, it could go two ways. One of it being positive impact. For instance, we make promises by the government. So a government official actually committing to stricter laws, like one mentioned, against child exploitations, and to signal proactive measures and also to foster trust and hope from the society. And maybe we can also have public figures to actually offer, using the commissive speech acts, offer in raising awareness to make sure this issue, pedophilia, is normalized, where in terms of people actually know and are well informed of it. So we can have stigma free discussions. But in a way, it could also give a negative impact, especially when using commissive acts. For instance, maybe the government is over promising without actually having a follow through, and this could create like an illusion to reduce public trust, where the government is promising a lot of things, but none of it has been declared, none of it can be seen by us society. And another thing is misguided commitments, where government is proposing punitive only approachables without actually addressing the main issue or the preventions that could be done. So in a way, we are being promised with all these sugar candy promises, but none of the promises can actually be seen and is actually being carried out by the government or any influencers or even public figures in discussing pedophilia.
Okay, thank you, Dina. So, Faris, maybe you can continue.
Uh,
different type of speech acts will have different types of impact, I believe. And I will be focusing on the assertive and the directive one. So for the assertive one, we can use assertive speech acts in order to persuade the people to understand more about this issue. Let's take for instance that I want to talk about the characteristic or there's a certain behavior that only a pedophiles will do. And also I will provide my evidence and my statement for that issue for so that the people can understand uh, how a pedophile will act and why. So by using assertive speech chats, then I can use the directive speech chats, which is to tell the people or to warn the people of how the pedophiles act and to be more aware of the people around us and to see if they have that kind of characteristic. So yeah, I
Okay.
believe it will have a rather a positive impact if it is used effectively.
Okay. Thank you, Faris. So moving on to the 10th question. How do you feel about? Wait a minute. How do you feel about the effectiveness of your communication and language when discussing about pedophilia? Like, that is it effective, or do you think that it needs to be improved so that you can, make sure the way you discuss about it more effective? And do you think that your communication and language also influenced by the public? Okay. Okay. Anyone want to go first?
Can I start first? Okay, so to answer your question, I feel like the effectiveness of my communication and also language when discussing sensitive issues should combine with clarity and also sensitivity. So this is in order to avoid bias. For instance, like we have discussed before, we would use professional terms such as child exploitations or even let's say victims, so this kind of stuff. So because of this, I feel like the main point that we are trying to discuss, that we are trying to have an agreement on within the society would can be achieved, and therefore we can say that our communication is effective. And also I do believe that public influence can shape my language and also my tone in order to align with societal norms. One of the examples that I can give is the PDD case. So, as we know, PDD has been grooming children and also these celebrities since they were kids. And some people might feel like it is a joke, some people might see this as a serious issue. So let's say if I see this post online and if I want to join the discussion about it, I would try to see what the comments are on about, whether they are joking, so that I can imply what kind of languages I should be using. Or if they are being serious, then I should use professional setting languages as well in order to discuss about pedophilia.
Okay, thank you, Dina. Anyone? Maybe Ajim?
Okay, so for me, I did think that my communication and language when discussing pedophilia is effective, but only in some part, such as uh, empathy and clarity, because the way I use mm, the language, which is direct language, so I can foster more empathy and clarity. People will understand the pedophilia, so I think this is effective. As for the communication and language is influenced by the public or not, so I think my communication and language is definitely influenced by the public because my opinion usually influenced from what I read in ads or the comment section in TikTok.
Okay, thank you, Ajim. Okay, one. Okay.
I agree with Dina and Ajim because I think clarity is very important for you to have effective communication. So I think I would choose to be more clear, empathetic, and more grounded in providing the evidence. And I think um, the the public, my language is also influenced by the public because my priority is also to contribute to more conversations that are constructive, balanced, or maybe I hope that it could also be solution oriented. So I think when we address public sensitivities, I hope that it will encourage more deeper understanding and more thoughtful and more meaningful engagement on such a critical issue.
Okay, thank you, one. So maybe Faris, do you have something?
Uh, For me, I think that the effectiveness of my communication and language when talking about this issue, it actually kind of depends because I'm not really a debative person. So if we are discussing about this issue, I tend to ask questions a lot to the people of how they perceive this issue, and if their opinions align with my opinions, then I will agree with them. But if they have a different opinions, then I will then ask them more question about why or how can you think that it's normal, and why do you think that that is okay. So as I say, as I'm not really a debative person, so most of the time I will just ask them those kind of question and let it move along because I don't really like to debate with people.
Okay, thank you, Faris. What about you, Rose?
Okay, so I think the effectiveness of my communication and language when discussing about this issue, it needs to be improved. I mean, maybe I could focus more when talking about this issue. Maybe just like what they said, be more empathetic. Um, I mean, like use language that shows empathy to the victim, to the family, or the community involved. And then maybe my communication could be more balanced approach when talking about this issue. Maybe not to downplay the severity or not to um, cause like panic about the issue. And another one, maybe when discussing about the issue, my communication could be more action orient, could be more focused on the action. So maybe could include the steps to overcome this issue or ensure that the discussions have solutions to do. So does my communication and language influenced by the society? Yes, it is, because I think that I've learned few words of few terms from the society, what they post online, and then learn from that. For example, like maybe the word grooming, the word child exploitation. From those, from the people's comments, we could learn what does the word mean. And yes, my communication and language does influenced by the public.
Okay, thank you so much, Rose. So moving on to the second last question. Imagine imagine you are part of a panel in a forum addressing the issue of child safety in the digital age. A case involving online grooming has been brought to your attention. So, how would you approach uh, discussing the case with the public?
Can I start first?
Okay, you can.
I think first thing first is important for us to acknowledge the sensitivity of the issue. So I maybe will begin the discussion with more compassionate and serious tone. So it shows that I am acknowledging the harm that can cause by online grooming and how can it impact on the victims and their families. And also maybe I will be educating the public on online grooming and how is by I think providing clear and accessible information about what online grooming is and how can it happen and why children are particularly vulnerable. But I try to avoid overly technical language while focusing more on practical examples so that I can ensure that everyone understands. And also I will emphasize the victim's innocence and need for support and highlight the importance of providing victim with emotional and psychological support. And lastly, I think it's very important that is to highlight parental and community responsibility because we know that maybe it's also important to encourage parents, educators, and the community itself to take proactive measures to protect children online. So maybe I would suggest to provide practical advices on how to like monitoring children's online activity and focus on digital literacy and also some preventive measures that could be taken.
Okay, thank you, Wan. So, what about Faris? What do you think? How would you approach?
Um, so if on cases about online grooming is a very quite a difficult issue because there's not a lot of initiatives that we can do to prevent online grooming because it's almost impossible to detect a pedophiles and online groomers about how they behave or react. So the only way that I can think of is to about how to be more careful about the strangers and trying to teach the people about ways to prevent ourselves from being a victim of online grooming.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you, Faris. Maybe Dina, you can continue.
So, to answer the question, what would I do to approach this case is probably I would stress on community's responsibility after what we have heard the previous people have mentioned. So, for instance, for me, I would emphasize the children's safety is a shared responsibility. Not only between family members but also educators, and maybe we can say governments and also all the authorities. So in this way we are encouraging vigilance and to report of suspicious activities in order to create a safer environment, specifically online, because we don't know what kind of perverted people are behind these computers or these gadgets. And by giving this, I would probably say a statement. For instance, this is a collective responsibility. So from families and also to governments, we all play a part in protecting these children from any online threats. So yeah, that's for me.
Okay, thank you, Dina. What about you, Rose?
Okay, so I agree with what one said about acknowledging how serious the issue is, and then how to like we need to discuss preventative measure, um, and then for like Dina just said about the government have to take action in monitoring groom or suspicious activity online. So one thing I would like to add is maybe provide support resources. So maybe um, during the forum, at the end of the forum, maybe we could suggest we could provide helplines or counseling sessions for the victims or the family involved in this incident. Yeah.
Uh, okay, thank you, Rose. Alvin, what about you?
Okay, so for me, my approach to discuss the issue with the public would be first, I would acknowledge the feelings of the victims, and I would share opinions on how to prevent it from happening. I will give actionable information, especially to parents, because uh, public tend to disregard the online grooming issues because they think that pedophilia can only happen physically, but in fact, pedophilia it can also happen online, and it is easier to happen online. So parents play a vital role uh, to prevent that from happening. So the second thing I would do is raising awareness, which is describing on how the online grooming can happen, and I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ajim. So, move to the last question. In your opinion, how can you create an awareness in order to voice out this issue? Uh, like to voice out pedophilia in society. Like how? Maybe you can relate it with the speech act or language. Maybe we can start with anyone who wants to start first. Okay, okay, one.
Um, so in my opinion, I think how can I create awareness in order to voice out this issue is for me, I think promote conversations around preventions, like maybe school especially can have a segment or a section about early education for children's, like educate children about online safety. If like for this nowadays Gen Zs or the next generation is more particularly involved in online. So I think maybe youth organizations should educate children about online safety, how to identify inappropriate behaviors, or where to turn for help if happen to them. So this could be a part like a broader digital literacy and safety curriculum, and I hope this could be implemented in schools one day, that teaches children the dangers of online grooming. And also, other than that, we could also advocate for public service announcements or PSA, and maybe in the PSA we can use speech acts like directive or assertive, where we could educate adults on the importance of how to monitoring online activities, or how to talking openly with children about internet safety. So I think this PSA can present statistic on grooming or how long-term effects on victims. So it encouraged responsibility in adult and also in society intervention.
Okay, thank you, Wan. What about you, Ajim?
So for me, the way that I can create awareness is definitely by educating the public, most importantly, the children itself and parents. So because children, they did not mature enough to actually understand what is pedophilia. So it is a collective responsibility within the public to educate them. So I think the right language the public can use, I can use, is definitely factual and direct language so that the children will not confuse and they will understand the issues completely. As for the parents, I would
Um, you are lagging.
educate them so that they are more alert about what they're doing so that so I would educate the parent so that they can monitor their child so that they are know what their child are doing.
Okay, thank you, Ajim.
That's all.
What about others who want to continue?
Okay, can I go?
Okay, yes.
Okay. Okay. For me, I would try to create awareness by trying to educate the public, especially through the social media. And how can we educate the public? We can teach them about the facts and statistics, as I've mentioned before, about the cases of child abuse and pedophiles that is currently happening in Malaysia. And also, the most important thing to do is to challenge the norms that are accepted in our society. Again, as I've mentioned before, some society believes that a certain act is seen as an act of love and not an act of a pedophile. So that needs to be challenged. And another way to create awareness is to uh, revise our policies towards pedophiles by imposing stricter laws towards them to make them aware about the danger of committing such an act.
Um, okay, thank you, Faris. Who want to go next? Maybe Rose? Okay, Rose?
Okay, so in terms of language, um, how can we raise awareness about this issue? Maybe the corporations or the government could emphasize digital safety, and then maybe they could use language that are relevant to digital platforms. For example, like maybe online grooming prevention or safe internet practices. So when people came across these phrases, they would be like, why is this phrase is being used? And then maybe there will be a description telling about grooming, or pedophilia activity, so then people will be aware, oh okay. And then maybe when we're talking about this issue, maybe just avoid victim blaming again, or judgmental tone, and then maybe use to be more supportive, just maybe say like, instead of you are the one who started it first, maybe we could say um like seek for support systems or creating safe environments when talking about this issue. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Rose. So, what about Dina?
So to answer this question, me personally, how would I create an awareness in order to voice out this issue, pedophilia in society, is by utilizing media and also storytelling, because I feel like today's society is very fast paced, and everything could be spread through the media. So in this way, we should leverage the traditional and also digital media to share stories. So of course with consent and also anonymity to protect the victims of pedophiles. So this is because we could humanize the issue and to drive empathy so that people will understand and people will do something in order to prevent it from actually happening and spreading, and also to avoid sensationalization sensationalize, you know what, I'm gonna spell it out. Okay, and focus on constructive messaging to actually inspire actions rather than fear, so that the victims will know they are not alone on this matter, and people are here to seek help and to actually prevent the pedophiles from growing in their silently moving community. So by sharing real life stories, we can shed light on the issue and also to encourage the survivors to actually speak up and mobilize communities to actually act in order to prevent this issue from happening again.
Thank you, Dina and everyone. So by that, I think that's the end of our interview session. Thank you, everyone.